I'm Jenni Carlson.
I'm Barry Tramel. Welcome to the Jenni and Berry Show.
The Thunder is in the midst of a 4-game road swing, and while it didn't get off to the best start, actually got off to a really, really bad start, the Thunder remains one of the biggest stories in the NBA, near the top of the Western Conference standings, beating contenders left and right. So, how good is this team? We'll talk about all of that and more, but first we want to say thanks to these sponsors for supporting the Jenni and Berry Show. The Oklahoma Ford Dealers Association, MidFirst Bank, Next Gen Roofing, Two Fellas Movers, the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, 988, Oklahoma's mental health lifeline. Drive into your best in Oklahoma Ford dealers today for the best deals on Ford's full lineup of trucks and SUVs. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. And hey, let's face it, a box pizza and a case of beer just don't work like they used to when you're trying to move. Nobody wants to help you. But we know two fellas that love moving. At Two Fellas Moving Company, we offer free, no-strings quotes for your move. With more than 20 years experience, we've pretty much moved it all. Our services don't end up moving either. Need to do some remodeling or spring cleaning? We have you covered with dumpster rentals and junk haul services. Remember, quotes are free and there are no strings attached. If you're moving in Oklahoma, make sure to call the fellas. Visit twofellas.com for your free quote today. Barry, I mentioned this road trip, 4 games that the Thunder's currently on as we sit here talking before Monday's game at Washington. Did not start that great for the Thunder. The final scores looked a lot better than the games actually were. There were some ugly point deficits for the Thunder in those first 2 games on the road, but still a 23-11 start for the Thunder, second in the West. Really feels like right now the Thunder's profile nationally is just soaring. How do we gauge that? Is it really as high nationally as it feels like the team is here in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think so. Oklahoma City often, even when the Thunder's been pretty good, has occasionally suffered from being avoided in the national discussion by national NBA media. Not a lot when Durant and Westbrook were in their heyday, but it took somebody like Durant and Westbrook to keep it up there. And since then, of course, the Thunder's sort of been on the fringes of NBA discussions and the NBA spotlight, but that's all changing in the last couple of weeks. Whether you're talking about podcasts like Zach Lowe, Bill Simmons, that crowd, whether it's the ESPN and TNT broadcasts, whether it's something like The Athletic. I mean, The Athletic, they flooded my inbox this week with all kinds of things. Thunder, I don't know that their editors were doing much communicating because people seemed to be writing over each other. Everybody was so fired up. So I think the Thunder has caught everybody's attention with this incredible start, and rightfully so. I mean, they look like a 1-2-3 type seed in the West without much worry that things could bottom out. So the Thunder really, I think, has gripped the attention of everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely gaining momentum, it feels like. Now, I will say that, we're not seeing a lot of national TV get rearranged for the Thunder just yet. The other night, I think maybe it was when they finished up there at home against the Celtics, obviously a huge matchup, one of the best teams in the East, one of the best teams in basketball coming in the Celtics, and the Thunder playing so well heading into to this month of January. And I think nationally people were like, why can't I watch this game? This is a great matchup. So those TV deals are not easily broken. They do happen and they will happen as teams that are in the conversation that people want to see start to sort of fall away, have injuries, moves start to be made so that those games are more on national TV. We haven't sort of seen that yet, but to me, Barry, that's just a matter of time. I think that's going to start happening pretty regularly because people want to see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They want to see Chet Holmgren. They want to see Jalen Williams. I mean, to me, it's really only a matter of time before you start to see the TNT games, the ABC games. Some of these matchups people nationally want to see, not just people in Oklahoma.
No, you're right. Now, our man Brett Dawson, he's got a story either out today. I don't think it's up yet, but it'll either be out later today or in the morning on the difficulty of changing the national schedule with ESPN, TNT, that kind of thing. It can be done. They don't like to do it. It's not easy. So I think they save those for later in the season. So you'll be seeing more and more of the Thunder. The time when you really will see the changes next season. The Thunder will be back at that max. I can't remember if it's 25 or 28, whatever it was. But you'll be seeing lots of national TV with the Thunder a year from now. But yeah, nobody really saw this coming. They knew the improvement was coming. They knew Thunder was getting better. They knew they were a potential playoff team, but nobody saw one of the best in the West. Nobody saw a Tuesday night Celtic game in Oklahoma City being as one of the marquee games going. And now it's just the Thunder's just going like wildfire. You mentioned that Boston game, Jacko. What do you think is, they've had some really cool wins the last 2 or 3 weeks. What do you see as the best win so far?
I think just because of how badly Denver really beat up on the Thunder the first time they played early this season, I think that, not going to Denver not once, but twice and beating the Nuggets there, the way that the Thunder did, to me, I don't know if I could say the first or the second was more impressive because that first win after getting so thoroughly manhandled early, that felt impressive. But then you had to know such a quick turnaround that the Nuggets, they had to be ready for that kind of punch again when the Thunder shows up, and the Thunder goes out there and wins a second time. So to me, those were the impressive ones. And frankly, Barrett, I think that is really kind of the microcosm of this team is, they I think maybe it boils down most to Chet Holmgren, but I think it goes to other guys as well. Really the learning curve that this group has. And I think it starts with a guy like Holmgren in a game like that because of Jokic. Holmgren's got to figure out some way to defend him, maybe not hold him down, but keep him from absolutely exploding. And he did that second time and that third time. And so you see that learning curve that this team has. So I go to those Denver wins, but there's a lot of impressive wins to choose from. I mean, the 23-11 as we sit here and talk, and frankly, about 19 of those wins can probably count as most impressive.
Now, I think somebody beat Denver a couple of days ago in Denver, but until then, the Nuggets had lost 3 home games all year. 2 to Oklahoma City, 2 to the Thunder, 1 to everybody else in the league combined. 1 with that great 118-117 thriller, and then the other in a blowout. So, yeah, what they've done in Denver is sets off alarm bells across the NBA, no doubt about it. So I really like the way they're playing. Yeah, this start to the Eastern road trip, not great. Some of that was the schedule. Some of that was probably a little bit of lack of focus. Everybody tells you how great you are. We've been talking about everybody telling them how great they are. Sometimes you believe it for a second, and then you're reminded, no, we got to keep doing the things we've always been doing. So, it's been a great start. I don't think the Thunder is headed for some precipitous fall, but I do think this is it's still going to be a learning curve. It's still not. This is not going to be a zoom incline to the top. Still have to fight. Still have to learn all kinds of things. I don't think the Thunder is a likely NBA champion this year, but man, it is lots of fun. The most impressive. Go ahead, Jacko.
Yeah, I was going to say, when it comes to wins, you were in the house for that Boston game. I was watching on TV that night, but a game like that, a team, you sort of forget how many great players Boston has. Boston doesn't forget it. Celtics fans don't forget it, but you don't see them all the time, and they start rolling these guys out. It's like, oh my gosh, their starting 5 is great, and then their bench guys start coming on, guys like Derek White, and you're just like, wait, how does this team not just beat everybody by 20 points a game? I was impressed by the Thunder being able to hold them off. You were in the house for that one. Do you have a most impressive win so far for this Thunder team?
Well, I mean, I think the route of Denver, because it's 118. I mentioned 118-117 over Denver, and then a couple weeks later they go back to Denver, and they didn't sneak up on the Nuggets the second time. I mean, the Nuggets they just lost to that team. They had to be fired up, and the Thunder not only answered the bell, they sent the Nuggets packing in their own gym with a blowout. So that was probably it. For all the things you mentioned about the improvement that Chet Holmgren made from, that Sunday, the first Sunday of the season back in October when the Nuggets just toyed with the Thunder. There was no toying with Chet Holmgren up in Denver. So I think the way they manhandled the Nuggets, and everybody was watching for that Boston game, and they handled that one as well. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to what we're seeing, and the thing that's most impressive about this team is how they just keep improving in all areas. One of the NBA's best offenses, one of the NBA's best defenses, and they've got all kinds of holes, all kinds of Achilles heels, but they make up for them in other ways. So you gotta like everything about this team.
Didn't you write something here just recently looking at how they've turned such a big corner on 3-point shooting? I mean, they were the worst 3-point shooting team in the league not too long ago. Now they've changed some personnel and that helps a lot, but still, this is a team that some of the guys that were among the worst on that team a couple years ago are now on this team that they're shooting the lights out from 3.
21 months ago, at the end of the 21-22 season, April of 22, the Thunder finished dead last in 3-point percentage. Today, they're number 1. And it's remarkable. Now, it helps when you add an Isaiah Joe, but it helps when you add a Chet Holmgren. But some of the guys are just shooting better. I mean, Luguentz Dort shooting the lights out. Josh Giddey making his 3-pointers. You've got, you got somebody like Aaron Wiggins, who's gone from not very good as a rookie 2 years ago to being really good now. Kenrich Williams, a mediocre 3-point shooter most of his career, now is a better 3-point shooter than a foul shooter. So just lots of improvement by this team. Santa Clara Williams is remarkable. He's up over 40%. I think 7 of the 9 leading rotational players in terms of minutes played, 7 of the 9 are over 40%. Oof. That's a remarkable set of collection of 3-point shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you mentioned, some of the guys that you didn't like, maybe a Lou Dort, who, defensive specialist. When I start to think about things that most impress me about this team, it's players doing things that, expand their game. When I think about Lou Dort shooting threes, when I think about Isaiah Joe, Bear, you and I offline have talked about this on numerous occasions, how much better defender Isaiah Joe is than we ever thought. When he comes in, he's a marksman, and that's what he's known for. And you figure, okay, marksman doesn't play much defense. That guy, I mean, he's not going to be confused for Lou Dort, but he plays pretty good defense. And I don't know that he did necessarily when he got here. So these guys being able to add skills and continue to evolve as players, we've got this far in the in this podcast. We haven't talked about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We're getting to him in a minute, but he's the same sort of way. He continues to expand his game. He's a little bit like the scratch golfer trying to get even better, but all of these guys continue to add and enhance skills that maybe they didn't even have before. To me, that's a nod to them, but it's also a nod to Mark Daigneault, his staff, just the culture that they've built to not sort of pigeonhole guys that, they brought in Josh Giddey, great passer. And instead of just saying, all right, you can't shoot, just don't shoot. They figured out a way to try to teach him, to move him along. So I think that's been super impressive to see. Even as they've been so good, they're still, pushing those bounds to try to improve individual skills, individual abilities.
Yeah, and you talked about Isaiah Joe. I'm the same way. I had no idea he was this good of a player. The biggest play I remember from that 1 point, I think it was the Denver 1-point game. I mean, the Thunder's down 1, and in the 15 seconds left, Denver, they get the Nuggets to miss, and offensive rebounding has been defensive rebounding has been a problem for the Thunder. But Isaiah Joe runs in and pulls the rebound away from, I think it was Torrey Craig, and all of a sudden the Thunder has the possession for a last second shot and wins the game. So they got players who have spread their wings, players that are doing a lot of different things. Kenrich Williams playing center, Aaron Wiggins doing a lot of different things. People just it's sort of positionless basketball. We hear that term a lot, but the Thunder really embodies it. All kinds of people bring the ball up court. Kenrich Williams, sometimes when he's playing center, brings the ball up court, initiates the offense. So lots to like about the way, the Thunder's always talking player development. Yeah. And now we're seeing what it really means.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I think we need to rectify the situation of not really talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander by doing it right now. And let's go here, Barry. I think you and I might have talked before the season. I can't remember if it was on our show or another platform. We basically said, listen, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, first team All-NBA a year ago. That's a tough group to break into. He might not make first team again this year. It doesn't mean he's going backwards. He might win the MVP this year, Barry. His rising case for the MVP, it's really remarkable. People around here obviously love him. They'll chant MVP even when maybe he's not in the race. But it seems like his case continues to get better and better for that MVP.
Well, here's the crazy, this is not a stat, so we can't call it crazy stat, but here's the crazy but true statement of the day for you, Jacko. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a better chance of being voted MVP than he does of starting the All-Star game. And he's not, I don't think he's going to start the All-Star game. You know, they still do the guard designation in the All-Star voting. So you're going to have Luka Doncic and Steph Curry starting for the West. They've gone back to the West East stuff. So I think he won't start the All-Star game. He's 400,000 votes behind Curry after the first ballot reveal. But he's like in the top 2. Maybe top 3 for the MVP race. And lots of people saying this is a guy that could do it. Joel Embiid's having a fabulous year. He's right there with SGA, and Jokic and Giannis are always lurking right there close. But he's all the things he's doing for the Thunder, playing the great defense, but also scoring at a remarkably efficient. He's one of the most efficient these last 2 seasons, last season and this season. You don't see guards, guys who handle the ball and shoot a lot of threes, and you don't see those guys shooting with such efficiency.
Yeah.
More than 50%. That doesn't happen in the modern NBA. So this is a remarkable run he's on, and I think that, the really learned intelligentsia part of NBA media just loves Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Hey, a couple nights ago, I know Thunder fans will not be surprised by my saying that sometimes the Bally Sports broadcast is lacking a little bit. The other night, I don't remember what game it was, but Shai had a huge scoring game. I can't remember if it was 38 or 40 points or what it was, but because they don't always put stats as guys are scoring and doing things, and we don't always know. And I wasn't watching a game cast, so I didn't know how his shooting percentage was. And he happened to be the post-game interview. And whatever game this was, he'd scored, like I said, 38, 40 points. And his stats flash up as they're doing the post-game interview with him. He was like 17 of 20 that night. He scored 40 points or 40-ish points on 20 shots. I mean, that's crazy, Barry. And that's the type of stuff he does almost every night with ease. To me, this is one of those things that I hope people in Oklahoma City appreciate what they're seeing, because the fact that Oklahoma City has gotten to go from Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, James Harden, all of those guys, I mean, obviously playing different ways, doing different things, but now having a chance to really take in another generational type of player with a very special and, elevated game. I mean, it's crazy what he's doing. That efficiency always blows me away.
Yeah, you know what? He's got Kevin Durant efficiency. That's what he's got. We sort of got accustomed to Russell Westbrook type efficiency, which is, you lose money on every sale, but you make it up in volume. And we'd forgotten that Durant was not that way until you go back and look at the historical record. And now SGA is mimicking Durant with just, outstanding percentages at every level, except, the 3-point shot. I think he's 32%, I think. So he's not very good there, but he's not shooting a bunch of them. So just a remarkable thing that this guy, who was billed as a defensive stopper when they made the trade for Paul George, you thought, maybe he can be a DeJounte Murray. Not at the time there was a DeJounte Murray, but what we think of as DeJounte Murray. Long, tall guard who can do all kinds of things defensively, and it's not bad on offense. Yeah, you might say that. He's not bad on offense.
That's an understatement. Hey, before we get out of here, let's talk about January. Let's step back for just a second. 17 games in the month, including 5 back-to-backs. This is a tough month for the Thunder. By comparison, December, Thunder only played 13 games, only had 1 back-to-back. Now, partially that's because of the in-season tournament. It divided up the month in a different way than a lot of months are, but this is a tough one for the Thunder. Is there a reasonable type of record that you would think the Thunder could accomplish? They're already 1-2, got the Boston win, but the 2 losses on the road, as we said here before the Washington game on Monday. So what's reasonable? What's your sense of just this tough month where the Thunder should end up when it's all said and done?
Well, when this month started, I would have probably said 10-7 because it is a tough month. Lots of games, lots of road games. So lots of condensed scheduling, very difficult. There are many nights in the NBA when the game is really determined before it starts. And that's determined by the schedule. What they call them schedule losses. The second night of a back-to-back, especially if you're going east, or the late night when you get there is already deep and you're not starting early. So that Atlanta game was a schedule loss. Brooklyn was not. That's just on them. But I would have said 10-7 would have been really good. Right now, you give me 3 games in to make this prediction. I'll adjust it to 9-8. They can have a winning record in January. I would think that would be a very good performance considering this schedule and considering, they've really been on, the Thunder's do a little bit of a dip. They're not I don't think they're the 72 Lakers. I don't think they're the Larry Bird Celtics. I don't think they're going to win 65 games. So, they're due a dip and maybe January's when it is.
Yeah, it does feel like if they break even, obviously 17 games, you're looking at 9-8, 10-7. I tend to think I'm with you, Barry. I was thinking, on the high side in the double-digit wins, the way they were playing coming in. But, now you start to think, okay, let's look at this realistically, and that they probably will have some down games. So I think a 10-7 mark would be anything that and above would be really good. 9-8 I think would be okay, because then I think it begs the question, Barry, like if they finish 9-8, 23-11 right now, gets them over 32 wins at the end of January, I still think they're in a really good spot to be in the top 4 in the West. And obviously, you're going to make that spot late in the year. That's where those spots are won and lost. But they're going to, I think, if they can finish January, 30 plus in the win column, feels like they're still in really good shape to host a first round playoff series. Who'd have thought that was even on the board?
And you know what? That's really the goal, I think. If you maybe for us, not for them, they're not going to admit to any goals, but that's really where you want to be. The West is so deep with so many good teams. Playing for certain positioning, that's fool's gold. Heck, you don't know if the Clippers are going to finish 2nd or 6th. So
right.
you don't know if Minnesota's going to finish 1st or 5th. You can't worry about that. You just need to finish as high as you can. And to me, the line of demarcation is getting that home court in first round. If you can do that, everything else is gravy. That would be what I would say would be the goal here as we approach mid-January.
Yeah, and I think what you said is right. I don't think the Thunder would cop to any goals because, quite honestly, I think you and I coming into the year, and most people who watch this would say, you know what? They made the play-in tournament a year ago. They won a game in the play-in tournament. If they make the play-in tournament again, it's not necessarily a step back. If they make the playoff, if they're already in and they don't have to play into the playoff, that would be a huge step forward. Now we're talking about, 6 or 7 steps ahead. We're talking about home court playoff advantage in the first round, something that I don't think anybody that was really looking at this with realistic eyes would have thought, yeah, this team will make that kind of jump this year. I mean, Barry, this is the kind of jump that the Thunder, 1.0 made from its first year in Oklahoma City to its second, and maybe even more. I mean, I think people were expecting that second year team with Westbrook and Durant to be a playoff team, but they were an 8 seed. This team is jumping from, essentially out of the, top 8 seeds a year ago to potentially in the top 4 in the West. In the West, who makes that kind of jump? This is the type of thing that it's almost hard to wrap your brain around.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It really is. Last year there was the narrative the Thunder got sort of lucky, not too many injuries, played a bunch of teams with injuries. And so people just really couldn't believe that a team that young and that close to all-out tanking could be so competitive. Now they're making another jump. I'm in the middle of a research into, has a team ever made two jumps like this, 20-win type jumps? I don't know if the Thunder's going to get to 20 wins better than a year ago, but they might do 15. I don't know if anybody's ever done back-to-back jumps of at least 15 more wins than the year before. So they're messing with history is what they're doing. And it's a remarkable thing. We need to analyze it. We need to study it. We need to critique it. We need to get mad when they lose. But we need to enjoy it. That's the number one thing we need to do.
Well, we're going to talk a lot more Thunder now that football's in the rearview mirror, but that's all the time we've got to talk about the Thunder this week. Remember the Thunder schedule, hot and heavy. We'll have all your coverage at Sellout Crowd. The whole Sellout Crowd team will continue to cover them throughout the entire season. So you can find our content at selloutcrowd.com, as well as barrytramel.com and Jenni-Carlson.com. And if you want our content at your fingertips, we have got you covered. We have a new app. It's available on iPhone and Android. You can download it today. If this happens to be your first time hearing or watching us, be sure to subscribe to our show on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. And if you like what you hear, please leave us a review. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.